Captain Ji-Wan stared at the warning lights flashing red across her ship's control panel. The deep space vessel horizon shook violently as sparks flew from damaged circuits. Her crew of 3 worked frantically to keep their ship from falling apart in the cold darkness of space. Minho, how long before we lose main power? Ji-Wan called out to her navigator, who was buried deep in the ship's computer systems. Maybe 10 minutes, Captain Minho replied, sweat dripping from his forehead. The engine core is overheating. If we don't land somewhere soon, we'll be floating dead in space. Sora, the ship's engineer, crawled out from under a maintenance panel. Her uniform was torn and covered in oil. I can give you maybe 5 more minutes of thrust, but that's it. We need to find a planet fast. Taeyan, their xenobiologist, looked up from his scanner. There's a planet in this system. It's about the right size and has an atmosphere. I can't tell much more from here, but it's our only choice. Ji-Wan made the decision quickly. Set course for the planet. Everyone strap in. This is going to be a rough landing. The horizon limped toward the unknown world as its systems failed, one by one. The planet grew larger in their view screen, showing a brown and gray surface with no signs of life. Ancient impact craters dotted the landscape like scars from some long-ago war. Atmosphere is breathable, Taeyan reported as they entered the planet's airspace. Oxygen levels are good. Temperature is cold, but not deadly. That's something at least, Ji-Wan muttered, fighting to keep the ship stable as they dropped through the clouds. The landing was hard. The horizon hit the rocky ground with a tremendous crash that threw everyone forward against their restraints. Sparks flew from every panel as the ship's systems finally gave up completely. Then there was silence. Is everyone alive? Ji-Wan asked, unbuckling herself from her captain's chair. Barely, Sora groaned, checking her instruments. The ship is dead. We're not flying out of here anytime soon. Kay was already putting on his environmental suit. At least we can breathe outside. The air is thin but safe. They stepped out of their broken ship onto the surface of the alien world. The sky was a pale orange color, and 2 small moons hung visible in the daylight. The ground was covered in fine dust that crunched under their boots. Look at this place, Taeyan said, scanning the horizon with his portable equipment. It's completely dead. No plants, no animals, no signs of current life at all. But there might be signs of past life. Ji-Wan pointed toward a cluster of structures. In the distance, those don't look natural. The 4 humans walked across the barren landscape toward what appeared to be ruins. As they got closer, they could see that these were definitely artificial structures. Tall buildings made of some kind of dark metal reached toward the sky. Strange symbols were carved into their surfaces. These buildings are ancient, Sora said, running her hand along one of the walls. But they're still solid. Whatever built them knew what they were doing. Taeyan was studying the symbols with his scanner. This is impossible. These markings look familiar. They're similar to human writing systems, but that can't be right. Why not? Minho asked. Because humans have never been to this planet before. We're the first humans to ever leave our solar system, remember? They entered the largest building through an opening that seemed designed for beings about their size. Inside, the walls were covered with more symbols and what looked like artwork. The images showed tall beings that looked remarkably like humans, but they were doing impossible things. Some were flying through the air without any machines. Others were lifting massive objects with their bare hands. This is getting stranger by the minute, Ji-Wan said, studying the artwork. These beings look exactly like us. At the center of the building, they found a large crystalline structure that hummed with faint energy. As Ji-Wan approached it, the crystal began to glow brighter. When she touched its surface, the entire room filled with light. Suddenly, holographic. Images appeared in the air around them. The projections showed the planet as it once was, covered in green vegetation and blue oceans. Cities of gleaming towers stretched across continents. And everywhere, beings that looked exactly like humans were living their lives. But these weren't ordinary humans. The holograms showed them performing incredible feats. They flew through the air like birds. They lifted vehicles with one hand. They shot beams of energy from their eyes. They spoke to each other without moving their mouths, as if reading minds. They're human, Sora whispered in amazement. But they're like superhumans. The holographic display changed, showing what appeared to be a historical record. The images showed the superhuman civilization at its height, with billions of beings living in perfect harmony. Their technology was incredible, but it was their natural abilities that made them truly remarkable. Then the images turned dark. A shadow seemed to fall across the planet. The superhumans began falling sick, their powers failing them. The holograms showed them desperately working in laboratories, trying to find a cure for whatever was killing them. The final images showed the last of these beings, a scientist named Young-Soo, speaking directly to the camera. Even though the language was strange, somehow the humans could understand his words. "We are the Terrans," Young-Soo said, his voice filled with sadness. "We were the children of this world, blessed with abilities beyond the normal. But now we are dying, and our powers cannot save us." The hologram showed Young-Soo working frantically in a laboratory. "The plague targets our enhanced genes. It turns our greatest strength into our weakness, but we will not let our people die completely." The images showed massive ships being built, filled with small children. "We have removed the superhuman genes from our children. They will be ordinary, but they will live. We're sending them to distant worlds where they can start again." The hologram zoomed in on one of the ships. "This vessel goes to a world we have called Earth. Our children will grow up there, never knowing what they truly are. But perhaps one day they will find their way back to us." The final image showed the last Terran sealing the crystal archive. "If you are watching this, then our children have finally returned home. You are not from Earth. You are from here. You are the children of Terros Prime. You are the last of the Terrans." The hologram faded, leaving the four humans standing in shocked silence. The implications of what they had just learned were staggering. "We're not from Earth," Juwan said quietly. "We're from here. Humans are the descendants of these superhumans." "But we don't have powers," Minho protested. "We're just ordinary people." Ateon was studying his scanner readings. "Maybe we're not as ordinary as we think. If this is true, then every human carries the genetic heritage of these Terrans. The powers might still be there, just locked away." Sora looked around the ancient chamber with new eyes. "This changes everything. If humans are really the descendants of superhumans, then we're not just another species in the galaxy. We're something else entirely." Juwan knew that their discovery would shake the foundations of human civilization. Everything they thought they knew about themselves was wrong. They weren't alone in the universe because they had never been alone. They were the lost children of a superhuman race, finally coming home. "We need to document everything," she said, her captain's training taking over. "This information has to get back to Earth. Humanity deserves to know the truth about where we really come from." Caesades, they worked to record their findings. None of them realized that their discovery would soon trigger events that would reshape the entire galaxy. The children of Terros Prime had finally returned home, and their true heritage was about to be awakened. The news from Terros Prime spread across Earth like wildfire. Within hours of Captain Juwan's transmission, every government, news station, and research facility was buzzing with the impossible revelation. Humans were not from Earth. They were the descendants of superhumans from another world. Dr. Hannah sat in her laboratory at the Global Genetics Institute, staring at the holographic data that had been sent from the alien planet. As Earth's leading geneticist, she had been asked to verify the claims. What she found made her hands shake as she typed her report. "The genetic markers are there," she told her assistant, Dr. Wook, who was reviewing the same data. Every human being carries dormant sequences that match the Terran DNA samples. It's like having a locked door in our genes that we never knew existed. Wook looked up from his computer screen. But if these genes are dormant, why haven't they ever activated? What's keeping them locked away? Multiple safeguards, Hannah replied, pulling up a genetic map on her holographic display. The original Terrans were brilliant. Didn't just remove the superhuman genes from their children. Paul, they buried them deep and created biological locks that prevent accidental activation. Meanwhile, on Taros Prime, Captain G1's crew continued exploring the ancient ruins. The planet seemed to be one giant archaeological site, with each building revealing more secrets about their superhuman ancestors. Sora was examining what appeared to be a training facility. She noticed strange devices built into the walls. They looked like hand scanners or touch panels, but they were clearly designed for beings with human-like hands. Captain, you should see this, Sora called out, running her fingers along one of the smooth metal surfaces. These devices are all over the building. I think they might be some kind of training equipment. Ji-Wan joined her, along with Min, Ho, and Taeyan. The room was filled with these strange panels, each one glowing faintly with internal light. The Terrans must have used these to develop their abilities, Taeyan said, taking readings with his scanner. The energy signatures are similar to the archive crystal, but much weaker. Maybe they're safe to touch, Minho suggested, reaching toward one of the panels. Wait, Ji-Wan said, grabbing his arm. We don't know what these things do. They could be dangerous. But Sora was already placing her palm against one of the glowing surfaces. It's only one way to find out, she said with a grin. The moment her skin made contact with the panel, the room filled with pulsing light. Energy flowed through the walls like water, and every device in the chamber began to hum with power. Sora gasped as electricity seemed to course through her body. For a brief moment, she felt incredible. Her vision became crystal clear, her hearing sharp enough to detect the heartbeats of her companions. She could feel the strength in her muscles multiply, as if she could lift anything. Then the sensation vanished, and she collapsed to the floor. Sora, Ji-Wan knelt beside her engineer, checking her pulse. Are you okay? What happened? Sora struggled to sit up, her face pale, but her eyes bright. I felt it. For just a second, I felt what they must have felt. The power, the strength, Teat was incredible. Back on Earth, Dr. Hannah was analyzing the biological samples that Ji-Wan's crew had collected from Taros Prime. The readings were unlike anything she had ever seen. The planet itself seemed to be designed to interact with human DNA. God, this is impossible, she told her research team during an emergency meeting. The entire planet appears to be a machine. Not a computer or a robot, but a biological machine designed to awaken dormant genetic sequences. You're saying the planet can activate superhuman abilities? Asked Dr. Menji, one of her senior researchers. That's exactly what I'm saying. Soil, the atmosphere, even the buildings are designed to trigger specific genetic responses. It's like the whole world is a key, and human DNA is the lock. The implications were staggering. If humans could regain their superhuman abilities, it would change everything. But the risks were enormous. No one knew what the awakening process would do to a human body, that had evolved for thousands of years without those abilities. On Taros Prime, Sora was experiencing the first signs of genetic activation. Her body temperature had risen, and medical scans showed unusual brain activity. It's most concerning. Her cellular structure was beginning to change at the molecular level. We need to get her back to Earth, Ji-Wan decided. She needs proper medical care, not field medicine. I'm fine, Sora protested, though she was clearly struggling to stay conscious. Just tired. The feeling is fading. But it wasn't fading. If anything, the changes were accelerating. By the time Dr. Hannah arrived on Taros Prime with a full medical team, Sora's genetic markers showed clear signs of superhuman activation. Her dormant genes are coming online, Hannah explained to Juwan as they watched Sora sleep in the medical bay. The planet's energy triggered the awakening process, but her body is fighting it. She's caught between human and superhuman biology. She going to die? Jiwan asked. I don't know. This has never happened before. We're in completely uncharted territory. Hannah spent the next 3 days studying Sora's condition and analyzing the planet's effects on human physiology. What she discovered was both terrifying and amazing. The awakening process is natural, she explained to the assembled team. Terrans designed it to be gradual and safe, but only if certain conditions are met. The planet provides the energy, but the human mind must be prepared for the transformation. What do you mean, prepared? Minho asked. Mental conditioning, emotional stability, physical fitness. Original Terrans probably spent years preparing for their first awakening. Sora just touched a training device without any preparation at all. So what happens now? Taeyun wanted to know. Now we learn. We study every piece of Terran technology we can find. We figure out how they trained their people. And we do this right. Okay. Word of Sora's transformation had already leaked to the public back on Earth. Protests erupted in major cities as people demanded access to the awakening process. Religious groups declared it either divine gift or demonic corruption. Governments scrambled to control information that was already spreading across the internet. Dr. Hannah found herself at the center of the storm. Key, everyone wanted to know if humans could really become superhumans again. Politicians demanded answers. Scientists demanded data. The public demanded access. We need to be careful, she warned in a global broadcast. This process could be dangerous. We don't understand all the risks yet. But many people didn't want to wait. Volunteer applications flooded in from around the world. Military personnel, athletes, scientists, and ordinary citizens all wanted to be part of the awakening process. On Taros Prime, Sora had stabilized. Her genetic transformation was incomplete, but progressing. She could lift objects that should have been impossible for her size. Her reflexes were faster than any human on record. Her eyesight was perfect, even in near darkness. How do you feel? Juwan asked during one of their daily check-ins. Different, Sora replied, flexing her fingers and watching them move with perfect precision. Like I'm finally becoming what I was always meant to be. Are you still human? Sora considered the question carefully. I think I'm more human than I ever was before. This isn't changing who I am. It's revealing who I really am. Dr. Hannah was working around the clock to understand the awakening process. The Terran archives contained detailed information about their training methods, but much of it was corrupted or incomplete. She had to piece together the process from fragments of ancient knowledge. I think I understand now, she told Jiwan during one of their video conferences. The Terrans didn't just have superhuman abilities. They had superhuman wisdom. They knew that power without preparation was dangerous. That's why they built so many safeguards. So how do we do this safely? Slowly, carefully, with full, informed consent from volunteers who understand the risks. And only on Taros Prime, where the planetary systems can monitor and control the process, the first official awakening center was established in the ruins of the ancient Terran capital. Dr. Hannah personally oversaw the selection of the first volunteers, choosing individuals who demonstrated both physical and mental readiness for the transformation. The galaxy watched as humanity prepared to reclaim its superhuman heritage. Some species viewed the development with interest, others with concern, but everyone understood that if humans could successfully awaken their dormant abilities. Okay? The balance of power in the galaxy would shift forever. As the first group of volunteers arrived on Taros Prime, Dr. Hannah couldn't help but wonder what they were unleashing. The Terrans had been superhumans, but they had also been destroyed by a plague that targeted their enhanced genetics. Were humans walking the same path toward greatness or toward destruction? Only time would tell if the children of Taros Prime were ready to reclaim their birthright. The first alien delegation arrived at Earth's orbital station. 3 months after the discovery of Taros Prime, Ambassador Koros of the Valorian Republic stood nearly 8 feet tall. His blue skin marked with intricate silver patterns that showed his high rank. His 4 arms moved gracefully as he spoke, but his yellow eyes held no warmth. The Galactic Council is deeply concerned about recent developments, Koros announced to Earth's representatives. The awakening of superhuman abilities in your species represents a significant threat to galactic stability. Admiral Jiwan, recently promoted after her discovery, sat across from the alien diplomat. Behind her were representatives from every major Earth government, all trying to process the reality of first contact combined with the revelation of humanity's true origins. We appreciate your concern, Jiwan replied carefully. We're only trying to understand our own heritage. We're not threatening anyone. That remains to be seen, Koros responded. Throughout galactic history, species with enhanced abilities have inevitably sought to dominate others. The Terrans themselves were known for their aggressive expansion before their extinction. That's not true, Dr. Hannah interjected from her seat at the conference table. The Terran archives show they were peaceful. They died from a plague, not from war. Koros's expression darkened. The archives you found tell only part of the story. The Terrans were feared across the galaxy. Their abilities made them believe they were superior to all other life forms. When the plague struck, many species saw it as justice. The room fell silent. The implications of Koros's words were chilling. The galaxy had viewed the Terrans as enemies. How would they view awakened humans on Taros Prime? The first group of volunteers had completed their awakening process. Former soldier Kyung discovered he could lift a transport vehicle with his bare hands. His strength was beyond anything recorded in human history, but more importantly, he had perfect control over it. He could crack an egg with the same hand that could crush steel. Scientist Neri had developed telekinetic abilities that allowed her to move objects with her mind. She could manipulate materials at the molecular level, essentially rebuilding matter through thought alone. Her first successful experiment involved turning a lump of coal into a perfect diamond. Pilot Sung had manifested the power of flight, not through any mechanical means, but through pure will. He could soar through the atmosphere faster than any aircraft, yet land as gently as a feather. His understanding of three-dimensional movement was now instinctive and perfect. The abilities are beyond what we expected, Dr. Hannah reported to Admiral Jiwan during their daily conference. But what's most remarkable is how natural they feel to the volunteers. It's like they're remembering something they always knew. How many have we successfully awakened? Jiwan asked. 53 so far? No failures in the last batch. We're getting better at the process. But their success was drawing unwanted attention. Ships from various alien species had begun appearing at the edge of human space. They claimed to be conducting routine patrols, but their numbers were growing daily. The situation became critical when Queen Visera of the Hive Collective arrived at Earth with a massive fleet. Her species looked like giant insects with compound eyes and multiple limbs. She spoke through a translation device that made her voice sound like buzzing static. The Hive remembers the Terrans, she announced during the emergency session. They brought chaos to the galaxy, but not allow their offspring to repeat their mistakes. What mistakes? Ji-wan demanded. We found no evidence of Terran aggression in their archives, 'cause they destroyed the evidence, Visera replied. Karens conquered 17 star systems before the plague stopped them, okay? They enslaved entire species. They used their abilities to take whatever they wanted. Even if that's true, Ji-wan said, we're not the Terrans. We're humans. We make our own choices. You share their blood. You will share their nature. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Representatives from 12 different alien species were now present, all expressing concern about humanity's awakening abilities. Some were more diplomatic than others, but the message was clear. Stop the awakening process or face the consequences. We have a proposal, Koros announced. Abandon Teros Prime, destroy the awakening technology, turn to your homeworld, and remain as you were. In exchange, we offer you full membership in the Galactic Council and access to our trade networks. And if we refuse, Ji-wan asked, then we will be forced to contain the threat before it spreads. The meeting ended with no agreement. Earth's leaders needed time to consider their options, but time was running out. Alien fleets were massing at the borders of human space, and more were arriving every day on Teros Prime. The awakened humans were discovering that their abilities grew stronger with training and emotional focus. Kyung found that his strength increased when he was protecting others. Nari's telekinesis became more precise when she was solving complex problems. Soon's flight speed improved when he was rushing to help someone in need. It's like the abilities are tied to our intentions, Sora observed during one of their training sessions. Her own powers had stabilized, giving her enhanced speed and reflexes that made her nearly impossible to catch or corner. The Terrans designed it that way, Dr. Hannah explained. The genetic locks don't just prevent accidental activation. They ensure that the abilities only strengthen when used for positive purposes. Okay. That's why the aliens are wrong about us, Kyung said easily, lifting a piece of equipment that should have required a crane. These powers can't be used for evil. They literally won't work that way. But the aliens didn't believe them. Reports came in of attacks on isolated human colonies. The Hive Collective claimed they were preventing a superhuman uprising. The Valorian Republic said they were protecting galactic peace. They're testing us, Ji-wan realized during an emergency meeting with Earth's leadership. They want to see how we'll respond to aggression. So, how do we respond? Asked President Dong-Yoon of the Earth Federation. We defend ourselves. But we do it the right way. Show them that we're not the Terrans they remember. The decision was made to accelerate the awakening process. If humanity was going to face a galactic war, they would need every advantage they could get. Dr. Hannah established awakening centers on 3 different worlds, each one capable of transforming hundreds of volunteers. The first major confrontation came when a Hive Collective fleet attacked the human colony on Kepler-4 for 2B. The colonists had no military defenses, just farming equipment and civilian transports. The attack should have been a massacre. Instead, it became the first demonstration of awakened human abilities in combat. Kyung arrived on the scene within hours, having flown through space in a specially designed suit that allowed him to survive the vacuum. His strength was sufficient to disable entire ships by tearing apart their hulls with his bare hands. Nari used her telekinesis to redirect the alien weapons, turning their own missiles against him. Song's flight abilities allowed him to outmaneuver any enemy fighter, while his enhanced reflexes made him nearly impossible to hit. The battle lasted less than an hour. When it was over, the Hive fleet was destroyed, but every alien crew member had been saved. The awakened humans had gone out of their way to avoid casualties, using their abilities to disable rather than destroy. We could have killed them all, Kyung reported to Admiral Ji-wan. Our abilities are strong enough, but it felt wrong. Like the power itself was telling us to find another way. The news of the battle spread across the galaxy within days. Humanity had faced its first test and passed, But the real war was just beginning. More alien fleets were gathering, and they were bringing heavier weapons. They're scared, Ji-Wan realized. They're not attacking us because we're evil. They're attacking us because we're becoming something they can't control. So, what do we do? Dr. Hannah asked. We become what we were always meant to be. Awaken every human who's willing and able. And we showed the galaxy that the children of Taros Prime are nothing like their ancestors. The decision would change everything. Humanity was about to embrace its superhuman heritage fully. Consequences be damned. The galaxy would learn that awakened humans were not conquerors or destroyers, but protectors and guardians. The real test was just beginning. The full alien armada arrived at Taros Prime like a storm cloud blocking out the stars. Admiral Ji-Wan stood on the bridge of the newly constructed orbital defense station, watching as thousands of ships from dozens of species filled the space around their ancestral homeworld. They're not here to talk, Commander Minho reported from his position at the tactical station. Energy signatures show they're charging weapons. How many ships? Ji-Wan asked, though she wasn't sure. She wanted to know the answer. Over 3,000 confirmed. More arriving every hour. The awakening centers on Taros Prime had produced nearly 200 awakened humans. But they were facing the combined fleets of half the galaxy. The odds were impossible, but Ji-Wan knew they had no choice but to fight. All awakened personnel, 2 battle stations, she announced over the communication system. This is what we trained for. Kyung floated in space near the defense station, his enhanced body protected by a specially designed suit that allowed him to survive in vacuum. His strength had grown even more powerful during training, and he could now punch through the hull of a battleship. Around him, 40 other awakened humans took their positions for the coming battle. Remember the plan? Ji-Wan's voice came through their communication devices. Disable, don't destroy. Save lives whenever possible. Even alien lives, asked Nari, who was positioned inside the station, where she could use her telekinesis to redirect incoming weapons, especially alien lives. We need to show them we're not their enemies. The first attack came without warning. A massive Valorian dreadnought fired its primary cannon directly at the awakening center on the planet's surface. The beam was powerful, enough to destroy an entire city. Nari reached out with her mind, grabbing the energy beam itself and redirecting it harmlessly into space. The effort made her nose bleed, but she held firm. That was just a warning shot for them, she said through gritted teeth. Kyung launched himself at the nearest cluster of enemy ships. His enhanced speed allowed him to cross the distance in seconds. He struck the first ship's engine section with carefully controlled force, disabling its propulsion without causing an explosion. The crew would be stranded, but alive. One down, 2,999 to go, he reported with grim humor. But the aliens weren't holding back. Queen Visera's hive ships released clouds of fighter craft that swarmed toward the human positions. Each fighter was controlled by an insectoid pilot with compound eyes and lightning-fast reflexes. Seung met them in the middle of space, his flight abilities allowing him to dance between the enemy fighters like they were standing still. He used precise strikes to disable their weapons and engines, leaving the pilots confused but unharmed. These guys are fast, but not fast enough, he called out as he disabled his 20th fighter. The battle was intense, but one-sided in an unexpected way. The awakened humans were vastly outnumbered, but their abilities made them nearly impossible to stop. Conventional weapons seemed almost useless against beings who could fly through space, redirect energy beams, and tear apart starships with their bare hands. However, Ji-Wan realized they were facing a losing battle of attrition. No matter how powerful the awakened humans were, they couldn't be everywhere at once. For every ship they disabled, 10 more took its place. We need reinforcements, she told Dr. Hannah over a secure communication channel. How many more awakened can you give me? I have 50 more ready for emergency awakening, Hannah replied from her laboratory deep within the planet. But the process usually takes weeks. If we rush it, we might lose them. Do it. We don't have weeks. The emergency awakening process was dangerous and painful. Volunteers were placed directly into the ancient Terran awakening chambers and exposed to massive amounts of planetary energy. Half of them didn't survive the shock to their systems, but those who did emerged with incredible abilities and an intuitive understanding of how to use them. Among the new awakened was Pilot Yemen, who manifested the ability to project energy beams from his hands. His first successful shot disabled 3 enemy ships at once. Engineer Hyjin discovered she could phase through solid matter, allowing her to infiltrate enemy ships and disable them from the inside. But the most remarkable new awakening belonged to Communications Officer Minho, who had been monitoring alien transmissions throughout the battle. When the planetary energy hit him, he didn't just gain enhanced abilities. He gained the power to understand and communicate with any intelligent being, regardless of species or language. I can hear their thoughts, he reported to Juwan with wonder in his voice. Not mind reading, but empathic communication. I can feel what they're feeling. What are they feeling? Juwan asked. Fear. They're terrified of us. They really believe we are going to become like the old Terrans and conquer the galaxy. This revelation changed Jiwan's entire strategy. The aliens weren't attacking out of hatred or greed. They were attacking out of genuine fear based on their historical experience with the original Terrans. Can you communicate with them? She asked Minho. I think so. 8. But they have to be willing to listen. While the battle raged above, Dr. Hannah made a startling discovery in the deepest levels of the Terran archives. Hidden beneath layers of security that had taken her months to crack, she found the true history of the Terran civilization. The aliens had been telling the truth. The original Terrans had been conquerors. Their superhuman abilities had made them arrogant and aggressive. They had enslaved entire species and used their powers to dominate the galaxy. The plague that destroyed them hadn't been natural. It had been created by a coalition of oppressed species as their only means of fighting back. G1, you need to see this, Hannah transmitted urgently. The aliens are right about our ancestors. The Terrans were monsters, but as Hannah continued reading, she discovered something else. The last generation of Terrans, the ones who had created Project Genesis, had been different. They had realized what their people had become and had tried to change. They had modified their children, not just to remove their superhuman abilities, but to remove their capacity for cruelty and domination. The genetic modifications weren't just about power, Hannah explained to Juwan over their communication link. They were about character. The Terrans programmed empathy and compassion into our DNA. They made sure we would never become what they were. This information gave G1 an idea. If Minho could communicate with the alien commanders, perhaps they could end this war without destroying each other. Minho, I need you to reach out to the enemy fleet, she ordered. Tell them we know the truth about our ancestors. Tell them we're not the same. Minho extended his consciousness across space, touching the minds of the alien commanders. What he found was centuries of trauma and fear. The galaxy had never recovered from the Terran conquest. Every species carried genetic memories of oppression and slavery. They can feel my thoughts, Minho reported. They know I'm not lying, Tana. They're not sure it matters. They think power will eventually corrupt us like it corrupted our ancestors. Then we'll have to prove them wrong, Juwan said. All awakened units, new objective. We're not just disabling their ships anymore. We're rescuing their crews. The tide of battle changed dramatically. Instead of simply defending themselves, the awakened humans began actively saving alien lives. When a hive ship's life support failed, Sung flew into the breach and carried the crew to safety. When a Valorian vessel was about to explode, Kyung tore open the hole and pulled out every survivor. Nari used her telekinesis to repair damaged ships, while Hygiene phased through holes to rescue trapped crew members. The awakened humans were putting themselves at tremendous risk to save the very beings who were trying to kill them. "For saving us," came a transmission from one of the Valorian captains. "Why are they saving us?" "'Cause that's who they are," Minho responded through his empathic communication. "We're not our ancestors. We're something new." Ambassador Koros himself was rescued when his flagship's reactor went critical. Kyan carried the tall alien to safety in his own arms, treating him gently despite the fact that Koros had been trying to kill him moments before. "This is impossible," Koros said as he recovered on a human medical ship. "The Terrans would never have saved their enemies." "We're not Terrans," G1 told him. "We're humans. And humans protect life, even when that life belongs to our enemies." The fighting gradually stopped as more and more alien commanders witnessed the humans' behavior. Ships that had come to destroy found themselves being rescued and repaired by the very beings they had been ordered to eliminate. Queen Visera was the last to surrender. Her massive hive ship had been disabled by a carefully coordinated attack that left her crew unharmed but stranded. When G1 personally flew out to offer assistance, the insectoid queen finally understood. "You are not them," she said through her translator. "You are something else entirely." "We're what they should have been," G1 replied. "We're what they tried to become in the end." As the alien fleets withdrew, G1 looked out at the stars and realized that the war was over. Humanity had faced its greatest test and proven that power didn't have to corrupt. The children of Taros Prime had chosen a different path than their ancestors. 5 years had passed since the end of the Galactic War. Admiral Joanne Key, now in her 50s, but looking younger than ever thanks to her enhanced physiology, stood in the great assembly hall on Taros Prime. Representatives from over 200 species filled the vast chamber, all gathered for the signing of the Terran Accords. "Today, we begin a new chapter in galactic history," G1 announced to the assembled delegates. "Not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals, working together for the good of all life." Ambassador Koros, now a close friend and ally, nodded approvingly from his seat in the Valorian delegation. Queen Visera's translator buzzed with what G1 had learned to recognize as laughter. The galaxy had changed dramatically since humans had proven themselves through compassion rather than conquest. The Terran Accords established a new form of galactic government based on cooperation and mutual aid, instead of the old system where powerful species dominated weaker ones. The new government gave every species an equal voice, regardless of their military strength or technological advancement. "The old way led to fear and conflict," explained Minho, who had become the galaxy's first empathic ambassador. His ability to truly understand other species had made him invaluable in negotiations. "The new way leads to understanding and peace." Dr. Hannah, now elderly but still sharp, had spent the past 5 years establishing awakening centers throughout human space. The process had become much safer and more reliable. Nearly 10,000 humans had successfully undergone the transformation, each one discovering unique abilities that reflected their personality and values. "The awakening is no longer about gaining power," she explained to a group of new volunteers at the main center on Taros Prime. "Key, it's about becoming the best version of yourself. Your abilities will reflect who you are inside." The awakened humans had indeed transformed galactic civilization. Minjay, who could manipulate matter at the atomic level, had solved the galaxy's energy crisis by teaching other species how to create clean fusion reactors. Young Mi, whose empathic healing abilities worked on any living being, had established medical centers that served all species equally. Dongjun had discovered he could accelerate plant growth and had turned barren worlds into garden planets. Sun heat could purify water and atmosphere, cleaning up centuries of industrial pollution on dozens of worlds. Each awakened human seemed to have abilities perfectly suited to solving the galaxy's greatest problems. It's like the original Terrans planned this, Dr. Hannah told Ji-Wan during one of their regular meetings. The genetic modifications they made weren't just about removing aggression. They were about ensuring their descendants would be helpers and healers, not conquerors. The children born to awakened humans were even more remarkable. Unlike their parents, they didn't need to undergo an awakening process. They were born with their abilities already active, but more importantly, they were born with an instinctive understanding of how to use them responsibly. Young Jinho, barely 10 years old, could fly faster than most spacecraft, but never used his abilities to show off or frighten others. 2-year-old Mireille could read the thoughts of any being, but always asked permission first. These children represented the full realization of the Terran dream, the perfect fusion of power and wisdom. Not just superhuman, observed Taeyan, who had become the galaxy's leading expert on enhanced human development. They're superethical. It's like they were born with a moral compass that always points toward helping others. The transformation of human society had been just as dramatic as their biological awakening. Crime had virtually disappeared among awakened humans, not because of law enforcement, but because their enhanced abilities came with an enhanced sense of responsibility. It was literally impossible for them to use their powers for selfish or harmful purposes. The abilities shut down if you try to use them for evil, explained Kyung, who had become the head of the new galactic peacekeeping force. It's built into our DNA. We can only access our full strength when we're protecting or helping others. This revelation had finally convinced even the most skeptical alien species that awakened humans posed no threat. The genetic safeguards created by the last generation of Terrans were absolute. No awakened human could become a tyrant or conqueror, no matter how much power they possessed. The galaxy's economy had been revolutionized as well. With awakened humans able to solve most resource and environmental problems, scarcity had become a thing of the past. Wars over territory and materials ended when Sung and others like him could terraform planets in months instead of centuries. We've entered a post-scarcity civilization, reported Economic Minister Du Yoon during a Galactic Council session. For the first time in recorded history, every species has access to everything they need to thrive. Cultural exchange had flourished. As well, Minho and other empathic communicators had broken down language barriers that had existed for millennia. Art, music, literature, and philosophy flowed freely between species that had never been able to truly understand each other before. The Valorian meditation practices were now taught in human schools. Human music was performed in hive concert halls. The rigid cultural boundaries that had once divided the galaxy were dissolving into a rich tapestry of shared experience. On Earth, the revelation of humanity's true origins had transformed society completely. The old divisions of race, religion, and nationality seemed meaningless when everyone shared the same superhuman heritage. Children learned about their Terran ancestors alongside their human history, understanding both the mistakes of the past and the promise of the future. We are the inheritors of two legacies, President June told the Earth Assembly. The power of the Terrans and the wisdom of humanity. We must honor both by using our abilities to build a better galaxy for all. Museums dedicated to Terran history had been built on every human world. They told the complete story, including the dark chapters of conquest and domination. The motto inscribed over every entrance read, "Never forget, never repeat." The most profound change had been in how the galaxy viewed conflict resolution. The old method of solving disputes through military force had been replaced by awakened human mediators, who could literally feel the emotions and motivations of all parties involved. When you can truly understand what someone else is feeling. It becomes impossible to hate them, Minho explained to a group of young diplomats from various species. Empathy is the ultimate weapon against conflict. As Jiwan stood in her office overlooking the rebuilt capital city of Teros Prime, she reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this point. Humanity had discovered they were not alone in the universe, only to learn they had never been alone at all. They were the children of an ancient civilization, inheriting both its gifts and its responsibilities. The galaxy was at peace for the first time in recorded history. Not the peace of exhaustion after a war, but the peace of understanding and cooperation. Every species had found their place in the new order, not as subjects or rulers, but as equal partners in a grand experiment of coexistence. "Admiral," came a voice from her communication device. It was young Jinho, now 15, and already showing leadership qualities that reminded her of the great Terran scientist. "We're ready to launch the first expedition beyond our galaxy. Ships are prepared, and the crews are excited." Jiwan smiled. The next phase of human expansion would not be conquest, but exploration and sharing. They would carry their message of cooperation and compassion to whatever civilizations they found among the distant stars. "Permission granted," she replied. "Show them what humanity has learned. Show them what we've become." As the first intergalactic ships launched from Teros Prime, carrying teams of awakened humans and their alien partners, Jiwan knew that the greatest adventure was just beginning. The children of Teros Prime had reclaimed their heritage, but more importantly, they had transformed it into something better. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly as it should be.